Hey everyone, welcome back to Horsetooth Cinema, and today I'm going to be reviewing a new movie that just came out on Netflix pretty recently, and I think it's in some theaters as well. It's called The Power of the Dog, and it's directed by Jane Campion, who's a filmmaker that I was pretty unfamiliar with. I've heard of some of the movies that she's made, but I've never seen any of them. She's from New Zealand, I think. I was excited for this movie. It's getting a lot of hype, especially with talk about it being not nominated for many awards. I'm not really somebody that seeks out movies just because I think they're going to win a lot of awards or people are talking about them. I can usually just because I can be very disappointed by that, expecting something that's going to completely blow my mind, and it just doesn't. And so I just kind of went into this movie with expectations that this would probably be a really good movie, and I wasn't disappointed. I think this is a really good movie by any stretch of the imagination. And so yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So this movie tells the story of two brothers who are ranchers in Montana in 1925. And essentially, one of the brothers marries this woman who's a recent widow, and she comes to live at the ranch with them along with her son. And because her son is very effeminate, the older brother, Phil, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, starts to harass both the son and the new wife as well. And there's sort of tension that results from that. This is not a very plot-heavy movie at all. It's very symbolic. It's very metaphorical. So if you're expecting a Western that's going to you think it's going to really revitalize that energy, especially if you like Westerns, you're probably not going to get that here. But that being said, there really is a lot to like about this movie, starting with the cinematography and just the look of the movie. It's set in Montana, although it's not filmed there. It's filmed in New Zealand, and which is absolutely gorgeous. The mountains, you really feel like this ranch is just set in a bowl of Lord of the Rings type of mountains and nature around it. The cinematography, like the colors and the look of it, it really is trying to set a dismal type of feeling. So you get that like a lot of like shades of brown that you get in Western movies, but it's done in a way it doesn't necessarily feel exciting like a lot of Westerns are supposed to be, but it's actually the tone of it is still quite somber, I would say. Now, a lot of the hype around this movie comes around the performances of the actors. It's a lot of these actors will probably be nominated at the Oscars and other awards as well, and that's warranted. Benedict Cumberbatch in particular is amazing in this movie. He's conveying a very tortured character in a lot of ways, and the film subtly reveals that as it goes on. And he's pretty much an asshole. Like he's very passive aggressive, and at times just straight up loudly aggressive towards other people in the film. Kirsten Dunst is also really good, as is Cody Smith-McPhee, I think is his name, who plays the son. And wow, his character. There's some things I'll have to get into, like I'll have a section of this video that's spoiler. I'll have to get into some spoilers because I can't not talk about this, but I'll get into that. But right now it's spoiler free. In general, though, this movie has a lot of themes of repression. People who are there are things about themselves that they can't really reveal, but you see the results of them suppressing these things. There's a lot of themes about toxic masculinity. And there's even a little bit of Freudianism thrown in there, especially with Kirsten Dunst's character and the relationship between her and her son. I think if you're somebody who can occasionally sit down for a movie and just really kind of look at hidden meanings, metaphors, symbols that the director's trying to convey, I think you'll enjoy this, because I think it might even take a couple of watches for you to really get all of it. I think there's things about it that I still don't quite understand. And that leads me kind of into the issues I have with this movie. I do think it's kind of inaccessible. I don't think this will necessarily resonate with that wide of an audience. I do think you're probably going to have to be somebody who likes to look for hidden meanings and symbols in movies, at least every once in a while, for you to really get a lot of enjoyment out of this movie. Particularly, it's just not very plot heavy at all. Like there isn't a lot that happens, I would say. And if that's an issue for you, I could see you really finding this film boring. I didn't find this film boring, but even for somebody who likes to look for these hidden meanings in movies, hidden messages that the director is trying to convey, I didn't find it particularly rewatchable, even though I didn't find it boring, I would say. It's not a movie that I think I'll be going back to that much, particularly because I think I understand at least the big thing that they're trying to convey. And again, I'll talk about that in the spoiler section of the video. With the ending, I really feel like the ending was just a bit... it's kind of hidden in there. I had to read some stuff about the movie afterwards to really understand what they were going for with it. But wow, like when you really do understand what they were going for, I was pretty I was pretty flabbergasted by it. I thought it was great. Also, part of me looks at a movie like this, which is not only talking about themes of criticizing themes of toxic masculinity, which of course is a very important issue that does have negative impacts on people's lives even today. I kind of wondered whether it was really trying to criticize toxic masculinity in the context of the real world, and either the real world today or the real world back then in the Old West, or if it was trying to criticize movies that are about that time, movies that generally movies that were directed by Sergio Leone, have a score by Ennio Morricone, and star Clint Eastwood, movies like that. And I'm not sure if that's what it's going for. I'm not really sure I agree with the criticism, just because I think there's kind of like an ironic quality that a lot of those movies have that's not, even though the main character is very masculine, I don't necessarily think you're always supposed to admire that. I think it's more of just an artistic choice, and they're trying to like convey almost like kind of like how Indiana Jones and Star Wars would portray like old adventure serials. I don't really think that they're always going for saying like this type of masculinity, overt masculinity, is like the best thing that you can possibly strive for. But I do think that it was trying to criticize how people take masculinity and try to live by it so much in the real world. And I guess that's kind of a criticism I do agree with. So, but it didn't even necessarily feel like they were hitting you over the head with it. So I think largely, if that's the point the movie wanted to make, I think they did it pretty well. Now I want to get into the spoilers of this movie so I can just talk about the ending. So I'll just include something down at the bottom of the screen, and if you don't want the spoiler part of this video, you can just sort of scrub to the end where this notification will not be there anymore. So yeah, the ending of this movie, wow. Basically, Benedict Cumberbatch's character gets a cut on his hand when he's castrating some bulls, and this cut seems to get infected, and he later dies towards the end of the movie, seemingly as a result of this. He even says that he doesn't tend to wear gloves when he does this because he just feels like he doesn't have to. Like it's again sort of the toxic masculinity thing. But later in the movie, right before his funeral, when they're doing an autopsy on his body, the coroner determines that he died from anthrax poisoning, which really confuses the brother who's there, who thinks that he died from some sort of infection related to his job. Now, at the end of the movie, after the brother returns from the funeral, he reunites with Kirsten Dunst's character, who appears to be a lot happier than she was earlier in the movie, where she was struggling with alcoholism as a result of the torment of Benedict Cumberbatch's character. The son who is looking out at the window, who was growing closer to Benedict Cumberbatch's character earlier in the movie, and you could tell that there was this kind of homoerotic vibes that were going on between Cumberbatch's character and the son. He turns around and he has a smile on his face, which implies that one, he's happy that Phil is dead in general because now his mother is a lot happier, but it also implies that he's the one that poisoned him, which is really, really dark because throughout a lot of the movie, you see that this character is very effeminate, and he is sort of tormented by not just Phil's character, but all the people on the ranch. And of course, that generates a lot of animosity that this character has towards Phil, but you don't really see that on the surface. Later in the movie, once he starts to realize that Phil might actually be gay and is repressing his homosexuality, it's implied that he uses that knowledge and exploits it to kill him so that he can get him out of the way of his family, which is really, really dark stuff. And I thought it was really a brilliant ending to a very fucked up movie. That's another reason for me that I don't really think the movie was boring, because it really did have kind of an innovative and interesting twist at the end of it that kind of makes you reflect a lot about what just happened. And you're not just constantly looking for symbolism the whole time. There is this literal plot twist that was really quite interesting. So yeah, that's it for the spoiler part of this review. With my last review, the one for the French Dispatch, I realized when I was editing the video that I forgot to give the film a grade. I think that's a good way that film reviewers can sort of put things into perspective for their audience. So I would have given the French Dispatch an A-, and I think I'm actually going to give this movie the same grade, an A-. I think similar to the French Dispatch, actually, there's an aspect of inaccessibility that I think some people will take issue with due to just kind of the symbolic nature of this movie. But especially once I really understood the ending, I'll really look back at this movie and have not much but praise to say about it. But yeah, I don't necessarily think this is a perfect movie that absolutely everyone can sit down and appreciate. I think really that you have to be somebody that's kind of interested in the subtle undertones in movies besides just the literal story. So yeah, that's my review for The Power of the Dog. I'll be doing more movie reviews very soon. And if you like this video, you can like the video down below and subscribe. I'll have a lot more content for you guys coming soon. Thanks for watching.